All right, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, joins us now to talk more about this. And good to have you on. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Rob. Great to see you.
Republicans say that this is explosive. Democrats say that you're using sleight of hand here, alleging that you're debunking a theory that Obama and his team never actually endorsed. Why are they wrong to say that?
Well, first of all, it's interesting to see how the Democrats have chosen to respond to this. Their response has been very weak and, frankly, contradicts exactly what the intelligence that we have declassified and released shows. We've released over 100 pages last week that really direct the step-by-step what exactly occurred before President Trump was elected in the months leading up to that 2016 election, which essentially said the intelligence community agreed in their assessment that Russia was not trying to influence and impact the outcome of the U.S. election. Then you fast forward to just days after the election, the intelligence community's assessment didn't change. And then the first week of December was where the turning point occurred. There was a president's daily brief that was written up by the intelligence community in Obama's DNI. This is something that happens on a daily basis. And that president's daily brief provided an assessment that was consistent with the intelligence community's assessment leading up to the election. That president's daily brief document was pulled just hours before it was supposed to be published, and there's an email that we released saying that it was pulled because of, quote unquote, new guidance that was given. The very next day, a small group National Security Council principals meeting was called in the Situation Room to discuss what they called a very sensitive topic. Well, the topic was Russia. The summary of conclusions that came from that meeting, which happens after every principals committee meeting that now in President Trump's cabinet we participate in, that summary of conclusions then provides the documented evidence of how President Obama ordered tasks through then DNI Clapper to the intelligence community to create an intelligence community assessment that details how Moscow tried to meddle in the U.S. election to influence the outcome in favor of President Trump. So the distinction there is very clear from the intelligence community's assessments prior to the election, just after the election, and then what happened and the document that was drafted and published in January of 2017 under the direct instruction, the direction of President Obama at that time. The reason why this is significant, Rob, is this document that was created. It was created on the basis of, as you mentioned, the Steele dossier, something that was known to have been discredited at that time, yet it was still used as a reference for this intelligence community assessment that contradicted every other one that had occurred before. It used other pieces of intelligence that the intelligence community deemed to be not credible at all, which is why they had not used it in previous assessments. And it was the foundation for what would become essentially a years-long coup to undermine President Trump and his presidency.
Do you think that was the motive? I mean, if this thing flipped and all of a sudden they changed their tune, do you think somebody dreamed up that idea and said we can use this to kind of protect the Obama legacy, all the work he had done? They knew Trump wanted to go in there and rip it all apart. Was that a potential motive for this?
Yeah, yes, and this is the issue here that really draws focus into the implications of what occurred and why it's important to every single American. This is not a Democrat issue or a Republican issue. This is one that has implications that affects every single one of us as Americans because it speaks to the integrity of our democratic republic. The reality is, clearly, the Obama administration was not happy with the fact that President Trump won. I think many of them said over and over that they didn't think he would win. Well, the American people elected Donald Trump in 2016, which is what ultimately drove them to take this action that had the effect and result of trying to undermine him throughout his entire 4 years in his administration. We had 2 congressional impeachments. We had a years-long Mueller investigation. We had multiple attacks on President Trump, smears on him and his family. We had investigations. We had senior administration officials being arrested. The list goes on, and it all comes back to this document being the foundational piece of evidence that they kept citing that, in fact, was manufactured intelligence.
What would, I mean, if you're if you're the DOJ, though, you have to figure out if they're going to charge this, if they're going to do anything about this, and we don't know that they will, because you're talking about such high-profile people and players. I saw somebody put something out about seditious conspiracy yesterday online, and when you think about it, the allegation here is that they tried to undermine democracy, which is their key word that they use all the time, right? They always talk about fighting for democracy. Well, then they tried to undermine the mandate from the American people that they wanted to change from Obama, that they did not want this kind of government anymore. They tried to basically cripple the incoming democratically elected government to keep their agenda alive, which I think is about as anti-democratic as it gets. But what is the charge for that for these people, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The charges, that is up to the Department of Justice to determine. We have turned over all of the documents that we have, both the redacted and unredacted versions. We will continue to do so as new information and new intelligence comes to light. We have whistleblowers who are now coming forward who say they have new information that is related to what occurred during this period of time. So the legal path forward will be up to the Department of Justice to determine. However, I will say how essential it is as an American that we hold people accountable, no matter how powerful they are, no matter what position they have held. It is essential that for the future of our nation and our democratic republic, that accountability must occur.
Yeah. Let me just read this to you really quick, because this is relatively new here. This is from Obama's office. They say out of respect for the office of the presidency, they don't usually dignify what comes out of the White House with a response, but says that this is so outrageous that they have to respond. It says nothing in the document issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election, but did not successfully manipulate any votes. These findings were affirmed in a 2020 report by the bipartisan Senate Intel Committee, led by then-Chairman Marco Rubio. Any response to that?
We will be releasing further documents tomorrow that will refute that statement. And I would go back and point to, and we will be pulling a whole host of statements that were made by the Obama administration, by Hillary Clinton, by senior Democrat officials, by their friends in the media that state over and over again, after this January 2017 manufactured intelligence document was created, that repeat the narrative. And I'm looking at my notes here. New York Times says Russian hackers acted to aid Trump in the election. Obama's CIA Director John Brennan says there is strong consensus among us to support the CIA claim Russian hackers aided Donald Trump's election. Hillary Clinton said, I would be president if not for the Russian hackers supporting Donald Trump. So there is a vast body of evidence and intelligence that debunks and refutes this statement you've just read and others coming from some of the Democrat leaders in Congress today.
Yeah, Hillary called Trump illegitimate for years after that election.
Yes.
So, Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob.